kimliği de söyleyebilir misin? Yani belki birkaç kişi gelmek ister. Ya.
Why don't you go on?
Ya benim İngilizcem çok iyi değil.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on Hidden Islamized Armenians of Turkey, organized by Voices in Dialogue. My name is Huri, and this is my husband, Aram.
I'll tell you a little bit about Voices in Dialogue. For me, it's a very special group. It formed following the assassination of Turkish-Armenian journalist Hrant Dink in 2007, I believe, January. And it follows the main goals that Hrant wanted to put forward of a message of reconciliation and dialogue amongst Anatolian people. In Ottawa, this group stuck. I'm not sure about elsewhere in the world, but we're very fortunate that this group is here. Hudi and I are diasporan Armenians. We were born in Canada. Our grandparents fled genocide, they fled famine from their homelands. Every Armenian that you'll meet within the diaspora will probably have their own family history of escape and survival. Stories that I'm sure many of you here are aware of. Diasporan Armenians nevertheless have different reactions to these events. For example, I personally was born with a rather nationalistic perspective that Armenians were great, Turks were our enemies. That was the kind of thing I grew up with. And pushing for genocide recognition, for example, above all else, was the goal as far as I was concerned.
So I believe that the subject of today's talk stems from a basic human desire to know one's roots and one's identity. We want to know who we are beyond what we have personally experienced, where we are from, who our ancestors were. This information grounds us and gives us a sense of belonging. Traumatic events also affect us. The story of our grandparents' escape and survival shaped the choices they made, the way they lived their lives, the way they raised their children, and as a result, the way their children raised their children. We are all affected by intergenerational experiences, including intergenerational trauma, but resilience also guides us. Like the Indigenous peoples of Canada and the impact of trauma they survived, we have been shaped by our past and need to know our past to move forward in a healthy way. The recognition of these lived experiences help free us to move forward and reclaim our dignity. Things like apologies, reconciliation, and groups like Voices in Dialogue are nourishing and they help us to heal.
Of course, trauma is experienced in different ways for different people. For example, I can imagine how such trauma affects those who, like my own ancestors, live in the diaspora, but not really how it affects families who never left Turkey. I've learned about what have been called righteous Turks and Kurds, people who have saved Armenian lives. My maternal grandparents were saved by Kurdish and Turkish families. However, I had, not until the last few years at least, heard much about any hidden Armenians or anything about Islamized Armenians for that matter. Stories of Turkish grandmothers. My grandmother was Nene. I understand in Turkish it's Nine to many. Admitting to their families, sometimes for the first time, that they were in fact Armenian, sometimes doing so on their deathbeds. Exploded in the last decade or two within Turkey. They dared to speak more freely in the last 15 or 20 years than before. An example that touches us, within our group at least, other than David, who's going to give his family history, is our friend Aslı, who now lives in Turkey. She told me that she was 17 years old when her grandmother, near the end of her life, admitted that she's Armenian and she had no idea. Her mother knew, and her mother never told her. She kept it hidden.
So today we are privileged to have with us two people who will offer their personal testimonies detailing information about hidden and Islamized Armenians. Our first speaker is Raffi Bedrosyan. He's a civil engineer, writer, and concert pianist who lives in Toronto. He donated proceeds from his concerts and CDs toward the construction of school, highway, and water infrastructure projects in Armenia and Karabakh, where he also participated as a civil engineer. He also helped organize the reconstruction of Surp Giragos Diyarbakir Dikranager Church, the first reconstruction and return of property project in Turkey. He gave the first Armenian piano concert at that church since 1915, most recently during the 2015 Genocide Centennial Commemoration. His many articles in English, Armenian, and Turkish media deal with Turkish-Armenian issues, Islamized hidden Armenians, and the history of thousands of Armenian churches left behind in Turkey after 1915. Raffi is the founder of Project Rebirth, which helps Islamized Armenians return to their original Armenian roots, language, and culture. So without further ado, we would like to welcome Mr. Bedrosyan.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I bring you freezing rain and snow from Toronto. Parev, merhabalar, spas. My late friend, good friend Hrant Dink used to say, we keep talking about the dead and the lost and the gone. It's time to talk about the living. And I'll talk to you about the living victims of the genocide. These are the orphans. Now, these are the lucky orphans. How can an orphan be lucky? They have lost their parents, but they were rescued, and through Armenian organizations, church organizations, they were taken to different places, and they ended up being the Diaspora Foundation. These are the lucky ones. The unlucky orphans are the ones who were left behind in Turkey. These are the orphans which were taken by the Turkish state, the Ottoman state, and placed into Turkish orphanages. They were given Turkish names, circumcised, the boys, and they were beaten if they were heard speaking Armenian, and they were forcefully Islamicized, Turkified. This one is particularly in Ain Tura, Beirut, Lebanon, and the principal was well-known Turkish novelist Halide Edip Adıvar. And although she was a sympathetic leader, most of these orphanages were forcefully Turkifying and Islamizing the Armenian kids. There are also boys who were taken by commanders and placed in Turkish military schools, the fit and healthy ones. And in fact, they were given a name, the Army of the Healthy, Gürbüzler Ordusu. And these boys were trained as soldiers and devoid of any parental, motherly love. Most of them became ruthless soldiers in the Turkish army. And some of them were even used against the newly formed Armenian government in the war in 1920. But the main victims were the girls. The girls were taken as slaves, and the slave markets were abolished in Turkey in 1908, but they were reopened, and the girls, you see the tattoos on their foreheads and hands and faces. They were sold for the price of a lamb, but girls from wealthy families were sold for even higher prices, because whoever took this wealthy girl would also end up owning the properties and the assets of that girl's family. You know Sabiha Gökçen, as the first female military pilot in Turkey. Her name is given to the second airport in Istanbul, a national hero. And as you know, Hrant Dink brought out the evidence that Sabiha Gökçen was also an orphan Armenian girl from Aintab. And as a result of this, Hrant was persecuted, prosecuted, and eventually it was the beginning of the end for him, and eventually he was assassinated for insulting Turkishness. Another orphan was Fethiye Çetin, which was Hrant Dink's lawyer. And as you know, she wrote a book named My Grandmother. And she found out when she was 25 years old that her grandmother told Fethiye that she was Armenian from Elazığ region. And Fethiye went on a big mission trying to find her grandmother's sister. And she eventually found her in New Jersey as an Armenian. Unfortunately, her grandmother had passed away by then. Now, what was left behind in Turkey were not only these orphans, but also more than 4,000 churches, monasteries, and schools left behind by Armenians. This is a map of the churches in Turkey, not only in the east, but all over Anatolia. Wherever Armenians lived, there were churches and schools. Only around Lake Van, there are more than 300 churches and monasteries. So the biggest of these churches was in Diyarbakır, named Surp Giragos, and this church had a capacity of almost 2,500, 3,000. And in 1915, when the Armenian population of Diyarbakır was driven out, this church was also destroyed by the Ottoman army. The church tower, the bell tower, was bombarded by German artillery officers attached to the Ottoman army on the explanation that no church tower can be higher than the mosque minaret. And eventually it became the army headquarters during the war, and then slowly it disintegrated, and in early 2010s it was still in this condition. A few individuals had the initiative to reconstruct this Armenian church, and in 2011 it became like this. This was the opening of the church and the consecration of the church. There were, of course, Armenians from Istanbul, from Armenia, from diaspora, who came to this blessed opening, but the majority of the people were people who appeared to be Kurds and Turks. And in reality, they were hidden Armenians. So this church became a trigger to give the courage to these hidden Armenians to come out and reveal their own identity. And we heard many, many stories from them. We heard that the orphans from 1915, even though outwardly they were Muslimized and Turkified or Kurdified, they kept their identity hidden, and they passed it on most of the time near their death to the next generation. There were even Islamic imams, clerics, as hidden Armenians, that the man gives the prayers 5 times a day as a Muslim, but at home he's got a Bible secretly. These hidden Armenian families, they married their children to other hidden Armenian families. Some of them didn't know that they came from hidden Armenian families until they went into the army as a Turk. And the young man, as a Turk, wants to be a pilot, and the army commander says that you cannot be a pilot because the government has also records about the hidden Armenians. It's a security issue, and the guy cannot become a pilot. That's how he finds out that he's an Armenian, hidden Armenian. Or the word Armenian is used as a swear word, insult word in Turkey, in most places. And in school, in primary school, a girl is called Armenian as a swear word. She cries, comes home, says, my friends swore at me. And then the mother says, that's not a swear word. We are really Armenian, but promise you're not going to tell anyone. So there are all these stories. And these people, as I said, kept their identity hidden for almost 100 years. But with this church, they came out, and like a magnet, this church attracted not only hidden Armenians from Diyarbakir, but from Van, Malatya, Sasun, in many, many different areas. And they started coming here to this church, even though there's no priest, or they're not Christians, they are practicing Muslims, most of them. They started getting together as monthly breakfast meetings, helping each other find work, find support. And this went on for quite some time, for a few years at least. And this is the Easter in 2015. And the church organizers, we had cherek and these eggs prepared every year, starting from 2011. And every year, whatever we prepared, more than 3 times what we thought would come, came to the church. This is a 2015 commemoration, and most of those people are hidden Armenians. I gave the first concert there, first cultural event in financing the bell tower. And as was mentioned also in 2015 as the commemoration ceremony, but not only to commemorate the dead, but also to celebrate the rebirth of the hidden Armenians coming out again. These hidden Armenians desired to learn Armenian, and with help of the local Diyarbakir municipality, we organized Armenian language classes. I should mention that thankfully the Diyarbakir municipality also helped financially for the reconstruction of the church. And the rest was organized by me and a few others from worldwide Armenian communities. So they learned Armenian through these language classes, and as a reward to them, or as a prize, I took all of the graduates of this Armenian course to Armenia. So they came by bus from Diyarbakir and other areas, and I joined them in Yerevan, flying from Toronto. And with cooperation from the Diaspora Ministry of Armenia, we showed them their culture, their history, and their language. So in the middle, the lady is the diaspora of Armenia, as you know. We took some soil from homeland to Armenia, and we visited several places, as I said. And every morning before we went to these historic places in Armenia, we had more Armenian language classes. I thought these people would be bored by that, but they were very, very enthusiastic, and they took these classes every morning for 2-3 weeks. And some of them, it's a wide variety of people. The ages range from 12 years old to 84 years old. Some are lawyers, some are doctors, some are housewives, some are engineers, business people, retired people, all wide variety of people, but only one common thing. They are all hidden Armenians who want to return to their roots. And I just wanted to mention this young guy. I organized several trips to Armenia. The first trip, this young man whose name is Selim, he's from Sasun. He had finished university, the undergraduate studies, and he wanted to continue his master's in Armenia. So he stayed. We arranged for him to stay in Armenia and not return to Turkey for a 1-year intensive Armenian language course, so that he will continue to do his graduate studies in Armenia. And he learned Armenian so well that the second year that I took a much bigger group of people, he was appointed as one of the guides showing people around. Here he is again with the other guides. Now, for a moment, I will take you back to Diyarbakır again, to Çüngüş. Çüngüş is a small town within Diyarbakır province. It had a population of 10,500 in 1915. Only all Armenian, only 13 people survived the 1915. One of them, I should tell that in Çüngüş nearby, there is a big gorge called Düden. Düden in Kurdish means two sounds, because it's a deep gorge, and when you scream, it echoes and two sounds come out. And there's an underground river at the bottom of this gorge which joins Tigris. So the Armenians in Çüngüş, they were tied 2 by 2 and thrown down into this gorge in 1915. And the chieftain, or the commander who was carrying out this massacre, kept one young girl, and she was one of the 13 survivors of Çüngüş. And he kept her as his wife, his second wife, third wife, I don't know, but as one of his wives. And a couple of years after this event, the man is riding on a horse with this Armenian girl, his new wife, behind him on the horse. And when they are passing by this gorge area, the girl jumps down from the horse and starts running to the gorge. Before the man says, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" The girl says, "I'm going to my mother and father," and she throws herself into the gorge. This story was told by a Kurdish intellectual, Musa Anter, and I heard from the grandson of this family the same story, so it's a true story. But now these hidden Armenians, they go there every spring, just like we do our picnics here, spring picnics. Every new hidden Armenian who wants to come out is taken to this area as a new baptism type of. This is the church in Chungush. So back to Armenia, Armenian trips again. As I said, most of these hidden Armenians, they showed the courage to return to their Armenian roots. However, they, because of too much pressure and repression from their neighbors, from their employers, or from the state, they continued to remain as Islam Armenians. They didn't change their religion. But more and more, they are also starting to become interested in becoming Christian Armenians. Two of them wanted to be Christian on one of our trips to Armenia. And I took them to Echmiadzin, where the gentleman is a teacher in a Turkish state school. And in Turkey, you cannot be a public sector employee if you're not Islam. However, he still wanted to become Christian Armenian. So we arranged for his baptism, and he wanted to take his grandfather's name. His name is Sami, so he became Stepan. The lady's story is quite melodramatic, that she was a retired teacher. She's married to a very devout Muslim, Kurdish gentleman. And the husband had told the wife, you shouldn't dare converting to Christian. If you do, don't even think of coming back to Turkey, to home. However, her father, just before he passed away, he had asked his daughter, well, he had first revealed that they are Armenian, and he had asked her to become Christian Armenian too. So she was caught between these two, a big dilemma, to obey her husband or to obey her father. And until the last night before we went to Echmiadzin, she kept deciding or not deciding. But the morning when we were going, she said, yes, I will go through with this. My father suffered all his life. If I'm going to have trouble with my husband, I'm prepared to suffer for the rest of my life. So she also decided to go through the baptism ceremony, and her name was Rahime, she became Angel. I should tell you that nothing bad happened when she returned home. The husband, of course, accepted the situation, but their big challenge is now how to raise their children. Do they raise them as Armenian? Do they raise them as Christian? Do they raise them as Muslim, as Kurds, as they are known? Just imagine about these psychological issues. The teacher, the man, is known as a Kurdish Muslim teacher in school. How will the school children face him? How will they react? He also told me that he knows there are several hidden Armenian kids in his class, but he doesn't know if those kids know that they are hidden Armenian or not. How does he relate to them? So there are all these questions, and unfortunately, of course, after this baptism, he was fired from the school, from the state school, and after being unemployed for 2 years now, he's in a private school, teacher again. But there are all these personal challenges and problems. I should also mention that, I mean, if this man or this woman who became, or hundreds of them that came to Armenia, their families are still Turks and Kurds. So suddenly, if someone from your family comes out as Armenian, how does that affect the rest of the Turkish or Kurdish family? So there are huge problems, not only with your neighbors or your employers, but within the families, that when you reveal yourself as Armenian, you're also pointing out that your whole Kurdish or Turkish family has different roots than known before, and many of these family members don't want to be known as Armenians because they may lose their jobs, they may lose their neighbors, even their lives, because in certain communities, converting to Muslim is punishable by death. And there are all these complications. However, this movement has started and has gained momentum, and they are contacting one another through me and others. And as these activities became more and more widespread, I called this movement Project Rebirth, and there's a support mechanism now for all of them. And it's not only in Diyarbakir. There are branches in Dersim, in Mush, and in Hemşin. Hemşin is northeast Turkey, near Black Sea region, and here they have converted to Muslim 3-4 centuries ago. However, very interestingly, they have kept a branch of the Armenian language, and they speak a dialect of Armenian without them knowing that it's Armenian. And they are brainwashed to think that the language they speak is a dialect of Central Asian Turkish, and that language has come from Central Asia and has nothing to do with Armenian. However, when they are speaking, Armenians would understand that they are speaking Armenian. But they don't even know that they are Armenian. Like I heard with my own ears a Hemşin lady saying to me in Armenian, "Yes, hi Çim, yes Turkim." But she's saying this in Armenian to me. She's saying, "I am not Armenian, I am Turkish." But as I said, this return to the roots has started along in Hemşin as well. These are some of the orphans' pictures newly installed in the Armenian Genocide Museum. I'll pass on these things. We took them to Genocide Museum, of course. And they were very well received by the Armenian government as well as the Armenian population, the TV stations. They were all very interested. However, there are also some problems by Armenians in Istanbul accepting this new reality of hidden Armenians coming out without knowing the language, without becoming Christian. Now, all this reawakening of 5 years or so, let's say 2010 to 2015, unfortunately came to an abrupt end in 2015 after this election in June. As you can see, the green areas are the areas, the provinces where the pro-Kurdish party won the majority of the popular vote. And if you know your geography, that means that the Turkish state does not have much control over the border with Georgia, Armenia, Iran, Iraq, and half of the Syrian border. So this resulted in a complete change in policy of finding peace with Kurdish separatists, and it resulted in almost a civil war persecuting the Kurdish militants. I will just pass on these scenes very quickly. And the Turkish army basically went into all these regions, and our hidden Armenians also suffered because of this. These are urban areas, and this is not Syria, this is not Iraq, this is not ISIS, this is Turkey. And the hatred for Armenians also came out, and on the wall it writes Armenian bastards. This is addressed to the Kurds. And the POH stands for Polis Özel Harekat. It's Special Forces of Police. This gentleman, his name is Tahir Elchi. I would say he is the Hrant Dink of the Kurds. He was the one who organized my concert and the genocide commemorations in 2015. He was shot in 2015 November. I had 3 good friends there, an Armenian, a Kurd, and a Turk. Armenian was Hrant Dink, shot 2007. Tahir Elchi, the Kurd, was shot in 2015. And Osman Kavala, my Turkish friend, now is in jail. So the situation is going from bad to worse. And the military operations resulted in many, many areas to be demolished. And the Diyarbakır Armenian Church, which you have to go through narrow historic streets in order to reach the church, now sits out in the open because all the buildings around it are demolished, including many, many properties belonging to the church. And after 100 years, the church again became military headquarters for the state, fighting the Kurdish militants. So history keeps on repeating itself, and even though it's under police protection, the church is looted, many, many things are demolished. Structurally, it's still in good shape, but the police put the seats against the windows as protection from firepower. So this is the church. It was like this. I showed you before, after, and now the real after is again back to bad situation. People were sheltered in the basements of apartments like this for the past few years. This is what's happening in the east of Turkey. And that's it for my presentation. I will just show you a couple of small videos. This is the baptism ceremony. It's in Armenian, but you can follow even if you don't understand it.
Իրավեկիրցի Աբդուլլա Ռահիմը ցույց է տալիս հայության մասին վկայող փաստաթուղթը, որում նշված է, որ քրիստոնյա են մորական կողմից՝ Մարիամ, Դավիթ, Հարություն անուններով։ Նա մեկն է 50 հոգանոց այն խմբից, որն այս օրերին Հայաստանում է Սփյուռքի նախարարության Արիտուն ծրագրով։ Ուխտավորների խմբի ղեկավարը Ռաֆի Պետրոսյանն է, Պոլսեցի է, բնակվում է Կանադայում։
Սուրբ Կիրակոս եկեղեցին վերանորոգել է հետո թարգուն հայերը քաչությամբ մեջտեղ եկան, դուրս եկան եւ իրենց քաչությունը տեսնելով մենք կազմակերպեցինք հայերեն դասընթացք եւ հայերեն լեզու սովորելու 2 տարի է վերջ շրջանավարտները հիմա 50 հոգի Հայաստան բերին իբր մրցանակ իրենց։
Ծրագրի մասնակից 2 մահմեդական հայեր դիմել են Հայաստանում մկրտվելու եւ քրիստոնեական եկեղեցում զինվորագրվելու խնդրանքով։ Էջմիածնի Սուրբ Աստվածածին եկեղեցում Բագրատ եպիսկոպոս Գալստանյանը նրանց մկրտեց։
Մենք այս ավազանը օրհնեցինք որպես խորհուրդը Հիսուս Քրիստոսի մեր Տիրոջ Հորդանան գետի մեջ մկրտվելու։
Դիարբեկիրում Սուրբ Կիրակոս եկեղեցու հատվածն առանձին քաղաքապետություն է, որն էլ հայկական արմատներ ունեցող հայերի համար կազմակերպել էր լեզվի դասընթացներ։ Մկրտվողները ևս մասնակցել են այդ դասերին, սակայն դեռևս հայերեն չեն խոսում։ Արարողությունը թարգմանվում էր նրանց համար։
Գնանք դուքս էլ հավատ հույսեր եւ մկրտություն։ Հայերեն հավատ հույս եւ մկրտություն։
Մեր արյունը նույնն է, մեր աչքերը նույնն են, նույնն է մեր ապագան։ Մեր հայրերի հոգու մտքի ճանապարհով գտնված հավատքը հայկական քրիստոնեությունն է, որի մի մաս եք դառնում եւ դուք, ասաց Սրբազանը։ Ուխտավորների մեջ էր նաեւ Ակոս թերթի հայկական բաժնի խմբագիր Բագրատ Էստուկյանը։ Դիարբեկիրի Սուրբ Կիրակոս եկեղեցու վերաբացումից հետո նա այս համայնքի հետ սերտ կապեր ունի, մշտապես այցելում է Ակոսի էջերում լուսաբանում համայնքի նախաձեռնությունները։ Մինչև եկեղեցու վերաբացումը մենք գիտեինք, որ Դիարբեկիրում փաստաթղթով մեկ հայ կա, Անդրանիկ Զորը, որն իր կյանքն ավարտեց Ստամբուլի Սուրբ Փրկիչ հիվանդանոցում, ասում է նա։
Բայց երբ որ սկսավ Դիարբեկիրի Սուրբ Կիրակոս եկեղեցու նորոգությունը, հրաշք էր իսկապես եկեղեցու հետ միասին ժողովուրդ կոյացավ։ Մարդիկ հայտնվեցին, ասելով թե սա մեր եկեղեցին է, իմ բաբս այստեղ է մկրտվել, իմ դադս այստեղ է մկրտվել, մենք այստեղի մարդիկ ենք։
Դիարբեկիրի եկեղեցի օրական 200 մարդ է այցելում, սակայն ոչ բոլորն են հայ։ Տեղի հայերի գնահատմամբ 1 միլիոնանոց քաղաքում 100,000-ներով թաքնված հայեր են ապրում։ Վերջին 2 տարում միայն Սուրբ Կիրակոսում 15 մահմեդական հայեր են մկրտվել, դառնալով քրիստոնյա։ Կրոնը հայ ինքնությունն ամբողջացնող կարևոր բաղադրիչ է, ասում է Բագրատ Էստուկյանը։ Այսօր Թուրքիայում հնարավոր է դարձել դիմել անձնագրային ծառայություն եւ խնդրել, որ անձնագրում քրիստոնեությունը նշվի իբրև կրոնական պատկանելություն։
Մարդու պահեք ձեր հավատքը, ձեր քրիստոնեության համար չվախնաք, որովհետեւ քրիստոնյա անդանը կնշանակի քաջը։
Սոցիալական ճնշման։
Okay, one more please.
Şimdi gördüğünüz bu sütun
This is going to the genocide museum.
ve arada bir kesik var. O kesik yarısı Ermenistan'daki Ermeni milleti, diğer yarısı bütün dünyaya yayılmış, soykırımdan yüzünden büyük dünyaya yayılmış Ermenileri temsil ediyor. Diaspora Ermenileri. O piramit 12 parça taştan ve tarihteki 12 Ermeni başkentini temsil ediyor. Çiçekler de bu taşın içine girecek. Oradaki ateşin içine koyacağız.
I'm explaining the places where Armenian communities existed and no longer exist. They're all inscripted on that wall on the left. Of course, whoever is from Diyarbakir went to take pictures in front of Tikranager, Diyarbakir. The ones from Sasun went in front of Sasun. The ones from Van, they all found their places on the wall. And the last one is Derzor, the last destination. On the t-shirt it says Ari Dun. That's the name of the program, mainly for young kids to be able to return to see Armenia, but organized by the Armenian Ministry of Diaspora. But we cooperated with them. Even these old people joined that program to see, by buses, by hotels, different parts of Armenia. These are from Dersim. Anyway, so that gives you an idea. Unfortunately, this, as I said, this reawakening is now on hold, and my project Rebirth, instead of organizing Armenian classes or organizing Armenian trips, we are organizing lawyers to get them out of jail, finding them jobs, finding them new homes, because in all this region there's 500,000 people have lost their homes. More than 100,000 people are in jail or they've lost their jobs. So the situation is bad for Turks and Kurds as well as the hidden Armenians. And now our hidden Armenians, just like a turtle, they have pulled back into their shells again. So we just communicate, but we cannot organize anything. I think I will end here. Thank you very, very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Raffi. Sorry, Huri had to leave. She had to be somewhere. Just a short story, if I may. My friend Kumru and Umit recently, when they returned from Turkey, brought with them a book that I'm sure you've heard of. It's the book that's been translated the most in the world, as far as I know. It's Le Petit Prince, but it was translated in Hemshin Armenian. So it was written with an English script, I guess, a Cyrillic alphabet that we could read. And I was reading it, and half the words I could understand because they were in Armenian, and half the words Umit would understand. So together we were able to piece together some of the sentences, which was, I think, very nice and collaborative. Everything that Raffi was talking about that leaves us emotional and gives us some ideas, we're going to get a first-hand account of with David, who's a VID member, a Voices in Dialogue member here in Ottawa. He was born in Kharpert, Elazig. and was raised in a family that had Sunni identity with lots of clues about his Armenian background. He was especially inspired by his grandmother's stories about their roots. He moved to Istanbul with his family, and after graduation, worked as an electrical engineer for almost a decade. After he immigrated to Canada, his curiosity led him to have a DNA test. The result verified his thinking, and he found many of his Armenian cousins. David is married and has 2 sons. He loves people, cultures, and music. I will invite Raffi in just a moment. What I wanted to mention is, I'm just looking at the time, it's 2:08. I believe we're, 3:08, pardon me. We're supposed to leave at 3:45, is that right, from here, or 4:15? Until 4 we're here. There will be a Q&A for both of the speakers right after David's presentation. David, please.
Hello everyone, thank you very much. It's an honor to be being a part of VID and also being in the same event with Raffi and being with you all friends. So I am so thankful to all you come out. Just I want to share my story because of the 2 reasons. That's one of them is true. The other one is very encouraging story, at least for me. I don't know, you're gonna find out. By the way, you will, some of the slides you will hear some music behind, background. That's representing what places or the related subject. So I was born in, by the way, if the sound is too much, please let me know. A bit lower. Hard to see here, yeah. Okay. Yeah, as mentioned, I was born in Elazığ, right now called Elazığ. It is originally Harput, or even more authentically Harpert, in 1965. In a family that's Sunni identity. I was so lucky that born in this family. I'm very blessed that family that I have, my parents. Great. Oh, get closer? Okay, sure.
And lower the volume.
Lower the volume? Okay. And Harpert is right now Elazığ in the Turkey, east part of Elazığ, Turkey, which is name coming from the castle, as you see. Right there. That Harpert means, you know, like a rock castle or stone castle, something like that. That's coming from Urartu Kingdom, which is called also Ararat Kingdom. It's going way back to 9th century till 6th century before Christ, that Urartu Kingdom. So this Harpert castle built 8th century before Christ. And you hear the music that belonged to exactly Harpert. This is really representing, very good representative of the Harpert, this music. And at that time, as you can see the Ottoman map, there was a system provinces, not like cities right now in Turkey. Right now we have city system, but at that time we had the provinces, which is the 6 provinces in the east. Mostly Armenian were lived. One of the province, that my province, is there is green color. In the modern Turkey, you can see my hometown right there. You can see reference to Georgia, Armenia, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Cyprus, you know, Bulgaria. That's where I came from. First of all, I am grateful, thankful to my Lord Jesus Christ, because He is the one who did these miracles in my life. I wouldn't imagine these things happened to me not even 30 years ago. And also my grandma, she inspired me a lot. That's my journey started from my grandma, because I was very curious boy and very close to my grandma and asking many questions, and she was the one, I believe, who leaked the information to me. One day her grandson would know that her background is Armenian. I think she did on purpose. For example, my grandma, when I asked, she told me about her brother was Changosh, or Zangoch, or even Jamgoch. I asked my grandma, what is Changosh, grandma? She told me, Changosh is a person who rings the bell in the church. Then I said, how come, grandma? Aren't you Muslim? Then he said, shh, sus. When she says shh, sus, you cannot even get any letter from her mouth. You have to wait another session, maybe a couple of days later. I have to find another time to ask her many questions. Okay, right now you see my grandma in the middle. And also here, my grandma's sister, her daughter, and my grandma's daughter, the youngest daughters. These are the picture, very old picture, and you see they really Islamized. They put their head cover and stuff like this. Maybe, I don't know, in the region this is very common to wear for the ladies. That. And on this lady, who is my grandma's sister, I never met her, but they told her she never accepted to do Muslim prayer. You know, at that age, at that time, everybody should do, Muslim prayer five times a day. But she was the one rejecting all the time. Nobody can make her to do this. The people are showing different reaction. Even they showing outside as a Muslim. And on the right side, you see, this family is Changosh's family, which is my grandma's brother, who is doing the bell at the church, her wife, his children. But unfortunately, he wasn't in this picture because he died very young. This little boy here in the picture you see right now, 70 some years, probably close to 80. And when I told my story to my mom, many years later, my mom added some more stories. She told me her mother, which is my grandma, give her a bowl of water. And she said, go to the church. There, at that time, the year I'm talking about maybe 1952, 1953, 1954. At that time, in Harpert, in Elazığ, there's still some Armenian churches, like a couple of them maybe, I don't know. So she sent my mom with this water and asked her to get the priest, Armenian priest, pray the bowl of water. And she brought home. And they drank. And they put in their bath water, they washed themselves. I said, why were you doing this? Aren't you Muslim? Also, I heard from my grandpa, which is that grandma, I was talking her husband, he was always telling me, do not reply evil with evil. You know, if somebody do you bad things, you're gonna reply good. That's the verse that I found later on in Holy Bible, Romans chapter 12, verses 17 to 21, and 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 19 to 14. So I was growing up with this background. So my family and me moved to Istanbul, which is the biggest city in Turkey, for better education, better opportunity. Then I graduated there as an electrical engineer, and I worked in Turkey almost a decade. Then after that I moved to Canada, immigrated actually, yeah. Then when I moved to Canada, I started work in a company. Then somebody told me there's a girl from Turkey, come and see her, you may know her. I said, like, are you joking? Turkey is at that time 60 million people. How could I know that person? So when I went there, I saw she was my classmate. So actually she's my wife right now. And she is Assyrian from Mardin. And I know she is Christian. I said, show me the Christianity. I want to see that. She took me different churches. Anyway, she was trying to get me the Greek church, but we missed the 100 meters, so we entered Riddleview Bible Chapel. So I said, I am staying here if I want to learn the Christianity. I'm not going anywhere else. Then what happened after that, I grabbed a person there at the church. I didn't know he was one of the elders. I asked many questions. He told me, why don't you come our house every Friday so we can do Bible study? So I went to Bible study every Friday. So I have saved by the grace of God. And he baptized me, he married me, and he even was driving my wedding car because I had nobody here to drive my wedding car. Then many years later, when after I came to Canada, my curiosity increasing, so I do my ancestry test in 2015, and the results come up as I suspected. I found many cousins actually. One of them was, who is Leah, responding me, and we could write each other in Turkish because we both from same place. She was from Dersim, which is 50 kilometers north of my hometown. Then she moved from Turkey to Holland, then finally Ireland. Then after that we found each other during this, after this result of this DNA test. So, as I told you, I have found many cousins. So it's not good to categorize the people, but if I want to categorize the people that I found as a cousin, there are two groups, I could say. One group is from my hometown, my own hometown, which they haven't lost Armenian identity. They have Armenian last names, they are Christian, people like this. The other group, mostly from Dersim, they have a Alevi Zaza identity. So when we write each other with Leah, so I was praying to my Lord. I said, my Lord, I am so thankful that I found my cousin. Please show same grace to her that she might receiving you so as her Lord, Savior. Then next day she texted me. She said many years ago she have received the Lord, so she became a Christian too. So You see, God showed me many grace, many miracles like that. So I would recommend to everybody to do this test, ancestry test. You know, it is your right. It is everybody's right to know what is their background, right? And especially there are two reasons for that. One of them, the truth will come to surface. It's very important, the truth. Then after that, there are some people, you know, after that truth, they can learn, they can find in their ancestral background, there are something that they even ignorantly hated. So this cause, I think, some sympathize each other, like instead of hating each other, because we have different component in our DNAs. So some people, even they don't know what they are, they hate even with the ignorance of that. So the last Christmas, which is 2017, finally, Leah came to my home and visited us. And we talked about, she mentioned she's from Dersim, and but even with the Alevi Zaza identity, she said she knows that they are Armenian because they were celebrating Gagan Baba. Gagan Baba means, you know, Santa Claus, yes. Basically, they were celebrating Christmas. And I said, thank God, I found my cousin who I lost 160 years ago. How I calculated this? Because we are 6 cousins, so roughly, I think what happened roughly is 160 years ago, our family is separated. So I want to show little videos that Leah is coming, and I am getting her at the train station. My sons and me. And like little bit of each of them. These are my sons are filming us, but they are funny boys. They are talking about how different of height between me and my cousin. I was always telling that my brother was so tall. My great-grandpa was very tall. They wouldn't believe me. Then I said, okay, that's the proof. Look at my cousin. Then we came to church, our church. And at church, she was mentioning about our story. And by the way, my wife is filming us now. Okay, next one. After that became our home. We are having lunch. I don't know, you may not recognize, but there are lots of traditional food we have in the region. And we are praying, giving thanks to the Lord. And another one, just exchanging our gift. Actually, she was our Christmas gift, because my cousin, you know, came and visited us. That's great blessing. And this is with my own poor Armenian. I am saying something. I hope you found my accent is good. Okay, sorry. I just one previous, if I can go second, yeah, there you go. We are not really professional musician, but we just want to play our songs when we come together. The first one you noticed, maybe you noticed that is Adana Yuvokberg, means morning of Adana. I guess I should go faster. So another thing I should mention to you, my grandma that give me this information, leak me this information, her last name we call Lakab, Chulju. So I am so curious. I was searching everybody Chulju in Google, Chulju, Chuljian, Chulju. Finally, I found a person who looks like exactly my relative. Guess who I found it? It's Archbishop Sebuh Chuljian. Look, these are my uncles, and this is Sebuh Chuljian. So I sent him email. I said, your last name is Chuljian, my grandma Chulju. Actually, he's from my Harpet province, same province. It's amazing that how he wrote me an email that encouraging me a lot. He said, you are in good way because at least we are in the brothers in Christ. Then he encouraged me continue by my finding. He said, we are brother as an Armenian too. I wasn't expecting that encouraging letter from Archbishop Sebuh Chuljian. But that's God's grace, another grace. And also I want to thank my friend Moses here, Moses, because of him I found, actually he has a beautiful restaurant in Ottawa anyway. I found the three person, Hovel, Hovan and Janet, who gave me more opportunity to compare my DNA result with the bigger pool, let me say, because it was only in my, whatever the company I was doing this test compared. Now, after that they helped me, pretty much I compare with everybody. So I found many, many more closer cousins, especially one of them, Ruth Hosepian, Swisher because coming from her husband. Ruth Hosepian was amazing because she was writing to me, her father, because she's around my parents' age, she was writing to me, her father is from specific village called Yeriki from Harper, which is my grandpa. And she's describing her father, 163 centimeters, exactly my grandpa. That color of hair, that color, exactly my, like everything looks like she's describing my grandpa. While she was describing her father, from same village. Now I could conclude, I could say, this DNA test result is really, really accurate. Because how come a two-person, same physical properties from same village, but may not be relative? And by the way, as a result, she's my fourth cousin. And another one, Nancy Ohannesyan. That's the other person that close to me, fourth cousin. She's mentioning many names. I don't want to read all of them to you, but actually the one that I have a same matching DNA with the Metsoyan family. Then after I emailed to Nancy, she encouraged me that she's saying you are definitely a match to Bedrosyan. I know you're gonna now question and answer session coming, but I want to tell you my question to myself first before you. I would ask many times to myself, David, what took you so long? What? Why did you wait that many years? You know why? Because as I mentioned in the title, truth. Truth is very important for us. We lost the truth. We lost the truth. So we have to be very cling to truth. Unless I am 100% sure, I wouldn't do this. So my grandmas, my parents, whatever they said, okay, these are showing that my background Armenian, but doesn't give me 100%. After this DNA test, I found relative exactly like my grandparents. Physical feature from same village. I said, yes, that's it. You know, that's the reason I wait too long. Truth, very important. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Before I answer your question, I wanted to thank Voices in Dialogue, and especially Kumru Biligi, for organizing this event and inviting me. Thank you. And it's commendable. I wish in every community, Kurds, Turks, and Armenians should get together and go after truth and dialogue. The gentleman's question was, were there any objections or problems in Armenia in accepting the hidden Armenians? Actually, in Armenia there wasn't, but more it's in Istanbul Armenian community, and especially the Armenian church, the Patriarchate in Istanbul, raising some objections. There were some perhaps objections by individuals in Armenia, but that doesn't count. The majority of the public and the government encourages and accepts the hidden Armenians as Armenians. The Patriarchate, actually the acting Patriarch himself, has some problems with the hidden Armenians coming out and claiming to be Armenian. Unless they come to Istanbul, spend 6 months learning Christianity, learning Armenian, and only he can baptize them. I mean, that's his rules, and which is completely unreasonable for these people to leave their homes and come to Istanbul and be subject to his control. So that was the main objection. Otherwise, we're okay.
Well, I thank you for both presentations. They were very emotional and inspirational. I'd like to get your take on the opening registry in Turkey about ancestry, and why was it opened, and what effect did it give? I learned that a famous imam, he found out what he was an Armenian ancestry, but he was very well known in Turkey as an imam.
Yeah, it's open to speculation why the timing, why the Turkish state decided to open this genealogy registry now. I wouldn't know, but there were some surprises that, as you said, some ultra-nationalistic Turks or very, very religious Turks found out that they had non-Turk ancestries and Armenian ancestries. There's even some undocumented cases that one of these ultra-nationalists who found out that he's got Armenian roots, he was thrown out from the party and went into depression. That's that. I don't know the reasons for this, but all I know is that I asked all of my hidden Armenian friends in Turkey, and none of their roots are shown in the registry. The Turkish government still keeps this a secret, and I don't know if these other records are true or accurate, but all our hidden Armenians, their registry records start from the Muslim names, Muslim dates. But Armenians who were murdered or lost in 1915, in this registry, they are still shown as alive. So people born in 1850s are still shown as alive in this Turkish registry now, even though their families know that they were killed or lost in 1915. So it's not something to be trusted, the registry. Yes.
It's fascinating stories, that's for sure, and I don't want to be unrespectful to anyone, but I'm trying to relate. I'm Turkish, as far as I know. Might be one of hidden ones. I'm not a religious person. I'm finding it difficult to relate to this association between Christianity and Armenian ethnic. Can you, I guess my question is maybe both of you, but especially for David. So what is it that, why are you, like I'm listening to you as soon as you found out that you are Armenian, seem to be, so if you could try to explain it, it would be great for me.
Yeah. Actually, before I come here, I was thinking this question too, because, Armenians are not like a monotonic group, like not one type of people. You can find atheist Armenians, you can find Christian Armenians, you name it. You can find Muslim Armenians, you can find many, many different, Buddhist, even, I don't know. But definitely, one thing you are right, ethnicity and what you believe, totally different things. But in my case, since I believed in Lord Jesus Christ, I don't want to hide this. I don't want to be politically correct and to hide my Christian part in order to address whole range of Armenian people or whole range of people everywhere, like they may more sympathize to me. I don't really need that. I want truth, as I said. Truth is very, very important. When I found the truth, I want to keep clinging with the truth.
So are they happen to be at the same time that you find your ethnical background?
My ethnical background I found when I was even talking with my grandma, like a kind of getting to my mind, right? Like later on, when I was 20 years old, 25 years old, my mother told about this story that the bowl of water going to the church and they are praying and bringing. I understood that I am Armenian, like my parents too, like Armenians. But we were in a situation, so what? What should we do? If we are Armenian, what should we do? Like, should we go outside and say, cry like we are Armenians? No. But what I received my Lord Jesus is another story when I come to Canada and asked. But whatever my grandpa was telling about, do not reply evil with evil. If somebody do you bad things, you have to still keep doing good thing as a response. These verses that I found in Bible eat meat and the Christianity. That's two different things.
I would say that religion is a choice. The roots is not a choice. It's something as a fact, and once you find out that your roots are different than what you believed, you should be encouraged to adopt your roots. Whether you change your religion or have no religion, that's a choice that comes later. But having roots is outside your choice, and it shouldn't be denied to you. There are, Armenians were Armenians before they accepted Christianity, so it's not a rule that all Armenians should be Christian. Yes.
I would like to make a remark. My name is Emmanuel. My wife is Armenian, and that's the reason for which I'm here. We're not starting from scratch. I'm a lawyer. I've been a refugee judge. I've worked in many activities which are dealing with international security. And you're raising a very important question, which is right now being hidden by the political debate. We should always go back to the foundations of our basic society as it is right now, which is Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and in rights. That is the foundation. It is not what is your race, what is your religion, what is your language. No. All human beings are born free and equal. And that is very essential because it goes down to what you're saying about knowing the facts. You're not prisoners of a certain framework. You are free to know who you are, what other peoples have done before you, your ancestors, your friends, your neighbors, and so on. And I think it is very important to go back to that very essential intellectual and legal framework. Legal. I insist on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the presentations. I have a question. If I hear about the massacre in Armenian against Armenian people, we do a lot of stuff also in Germany, in Berlin, regarding to this topic. But always it's something like it happened in this time to the Armenian people, but also it happens to the Assyrian peoples, to the other Christian minorities like the Greek people. And after the Armenian massacre, it happened also against the people in Kherson. And I'm wondering why can we not link to these massacres together, like ironically, from the perspective of the history, and also synchronically, what happens in the same time to the other people, so that we can draw out some knowledge that we can use it to prevent now new massacres. I mean, it keeps going. So you mentioned 2011 the church was reopened, but it's closed, I guess, and we couldn't manage it to keep it open. So can you say something about it? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the question. It's a complicated question, and we should also mention the Pontic Greeks. They were heavily massacred, and only now it's being recognized the extent of the massacre, which is definable as genocide too. And their thing happened in 1930s and many others, and it's still happening in Syria and Iraq now. you're right, and I'm an advisor to Zoryan Institute, and Zoryan Institute is involved with genocide studies, and there is a movement to link the commonality of the genocidal intents and genocidal policies and the implications and the consequences of every genocide to one another. That is being done more and more, like Zoryan being one of the at the forefront of genocidal studies, but in certain universities, especially in Sweden as well, Assyrian, the SECO center there, they are all now being coordinated with one another. And there was also a lot of interest in these subjects in Turkey for a while. Now everything is on hold, of course, but what you say is correct, that it shouldn't be specifically Armenian genocide or this genocide, that genocide. They are all common to one another, and if you deny, then genocide denied is genocide repeated or genocide continued. And Holocaust wouldn't have happened if the world reacted to the Armenian genocide. The German officers, they learned in Anatolia how to carry out certain genocidal actions, and they did it with Hitler, and Hitler himself said, after all, who remembers the Armenians? So, and their thing happened because the Turks at that time, İnönü and Atatürk, they knew that there wouldn't be any consequences, so their sin was the same continuation of the same thing. So you're right, it has to come out more. People should be aware of it, but unfortunately politics prevents these things from happening.
I want to ask, it came out as, I don't know in which presentation, it said Kurdish separatist, I'm against this using, because I'm Kurdish and we are not separatist, and the Turkish state say something like that to make bad Kurdish movement. I would appreciate it if
Okay.
if you
I should have said local autonomy, maybe.
yeah, or the freedom.
Yeah.
No. One, maybe two more questions, if there are any. Please.
Has there been any effort for a movement of reconciliation, like in South Africa, for example, in some rare situations that we know? Has there been any movement of that kind between the Armenians and the Turks?
Do you mean in Turkey?
I'm from an Armenian background.
Do you mean in Turkey? Are there any efforts of reconciliation?
Well, of course,
Turkey?
it should be between the Turks and
But within
Armenians.
Turkey or outside of?
Where would it be? You know, we're talking about the Turks and the Armenians.
Well, it could be
right now,
outside
right?
of Turkey. That's why I wanted that. I just wanted. Please go.
Well, there was for a while, but in Turkey, whoever participated, volunteered, or initiated these things, they are now in jail. Or they are, these things start in universities, academic institutions. They are either lost their jobs or they are in jail. There was some initiative from the government as well, but everything now is on hold, and the repressive regime has now prevented any of these movements from going ahead. So until Erdogan goes or changes completely, no reconciliation can happen right now. There was even movement in terms of trying to restore abandoned and destroyed Armenian churches, for example, from the government. I was working with them, but everything is now stopped. And whoever worked on these, as I said, are not in the government anymore.
Excuse me. I remember there was this online exhibition from the Ministry, I think, of Culture or something like that, showing all the architecture, all the buildings built by Armenians in, this was the most everything, all the older, you know, from the 19th century, Balian and all that.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of those things that they were doing for reconciliation.
Yeah. No more. Yes.
No more?
Can you expand further in terms of hidden Armenians? Maybe you, David, because you know modern Elazig, but also you, Raffi, to your ongoing work. Could you break it down? Is it easier for somebody identifying himself as a Kurd or a Turk ethnicity to come out as a hidden Armenian? Was there a difference between Kurds or Turks? How did they identify themselves today in Turkey? Because it cannot be an immaculate conception in the 1920s that somebody's family became Turkic or Kurdish. What's their affiliation if there is?
I think people that found their roots Armenian, they may have a Turkish identity or Kurdish identity. In my case, for example, Alevis as identity, many different identity. How do they get this identity? I really cannot answer. I can speculate, but which is not a good thing, because I was wondering whether they have a preference when they have to change the identity. They had a preference. Oh, let me go this way. This is my new identity. Or they didn't have any chance. Whoever forcing, they got this identity. I don't know. I think you may say more than me.
Well, just because of location, geographics, these hidden Armenians, mostly they are in eastern and southeastern Turkey. That's where the main Armenian populations were, and that's where the orphans were, most of them. So they are surrounded by Kurds. It's in Kurdish communities, and they are the ones coming out. However, the most liberated place in Turkey is still Istanbul. So in Istanbul, within hidden Armenians are coming out from Turkish families too. So it's hard to say. It depends on their surroundings, the environment, their neighbors, their employers. So both from Turks and Kurds, these hidden Armenians are coming out if the situation, if the conditions are right. I think that's all. Thank you again.
Yes, thank you very much to the speakers. It's been a pleasure.